Okay, so
हम
welcome
लोग
to
कुछ
this.
ज्यादा पॉलिटिकल तो नहीं डिस्कस कर रहे हैं ना?
नो 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 नो, मैं सेट करूंगा
आज
कि
क्या
हम लोग
कुछ
क्या क्या चीजें
भरोसा
बात
नहीं है
करेंगे.
तेरे?
Kaushal
Feels
ma'am, you
like,
won't be Wangchuk 2.0. No worries. Okay,
no,
so
no. I mean, generally feel, the kind of environment that is around, you feel all these things.
true, true, true. We will be very cautious about it. We will try not to speak anything that might put us in
Mm.
trouble. So this group right now, Varun has his camera off. Otherwise, he's joining from Bombay. We are joining from East. I represent East, and there is one person from North, Kargil, and then Aditya from South. So it's like such a representative space. In today's We Talk a Lot podcast, we are going to talk about the transition of power in Nepal. Something that is interesting me a lot is how this Gen Z revolution or revolt helped to bring about a political change, a very cataclysmic change in the politics of Nepal. So, that being said, I would open the stage with one question. What do you think is the role of Gen Zs and the youngsters in determining the future of democratic politics, especially in the context of South India? I mean, South Asia. Anyone can start speaking.
I have a negative opinion, so I'll go at last. I like someone to come with a positive opinion on what happened in Nepal.
Uh, I'll maybe start with an example of a conversation that I had in Pune once. I was traveling in an auto, and when LPGs were not given to hotels, and just before that, I was in Gokarna where I saw like several hotels closed, and people who are suffering are the poor people because they are employed in those spaces. So that conversation started with him feeling happy कि LPGs are not reaching to these hotels, just thinking कि वो capitalist and बड़े लोगों को ही फायदा करता है. So gradually that conversation went to a point where he was very casual and masochist about certain political ideologies, and I was very vehement about me having greater demands from the government. For example, like 5G is not a thing which is something that government is giving to us by as a मतलब वो हम पे क्या बोलते हैं इसको फेवर नहीं कर रहे हैं, बट इट इज समथिंग विच वी एज मॉडर्न जनरेशन पीपल लाइक जेनजीज एंड अर्ली लेट millennials we demand it. So I feel Gen Zs are very vocal about their opinions, and but India में definitely economic conditions and political conditions have been more stable, जिसके वजह से Gen Zs have not manifested their anger or frustration as it has in Nepal. But I really feel the voice of Gen Z is very strong, and that is going to shape the political future of India. This is what I feel.
I definitely feel that would happen if they could relieve themselves from the problems of TikTok, Reels, and all that rubbish that is going on, right? So I have 2 points, two facets of Gen Z that I one that I admire and one that I actually hate, right? So one is the impulsive nature of Gen Zs. And in fact, I am a Gen Z. I got to find out, I got to know about it just recently. I'm 97 born, but I've never felt like a Gen Z, right? I am a millennial, right? I mean, according to myself. But uh, what I have seen is, like, at least for the Gen Z, this particular generation, what happened was they were one of the first generations to actually get into the proper unitary family style, right? They came away from the united family, number one. Number two, they were born into families where both the parents have been busy, right? And also, so what happens there is you don't get beaten by your parents for every naughty business that you do. So that gives you a certain kind of freedom that has never been enjoyed before in previous generations, right? हमने कुछ किया तो we would get the belt, we would get the cricket bat, whatever, chappal फेंक के मारेंगे and all that. But Gen Z doesn't have that. So they do have an impulsive kind of nature, which, like you rightly said, They have that anger whenever they want something, they go get it, right? So that does happen. But at the same time, I also feel that they are a little too entitled at times, right?
Mhm.
They feel to be too entitled, right? मुझे चाहिए तो चाहिए अभी. They don't want to work for it. They don't understand the technology behind 5G, but they want 5G, right? The infrastructure that is required and all that, right? So I mean, it's kind of a two-pronged thing. So the other thing that the facet that I hate about Gen Z is the short attention span. But that is through no fault of the Gen Zs. That is the way the world, the technology has been molding people, right? All these short forms of content. In fact, I find it so hard to finish a book right now, right? I just don't have the patience to sit down and read an entire book.
I can relate with
But
you.
12th, exactly, right? So, but 12th May, I had my board exams. My father said, "This is the last book you're going to buy, and never again." And I finished that entire. So it was Dan Brown Origin or something else, some Dan Brown, The Lost Symbol, and I finished that in one night. And today I am
Yeah.
struggling to finish an entire book in 3 months, 4 months, right? So the attention span has gone so low that people are no longer sticking to an issue long enough to see it through. And that is what I'm afraid I might see in Nepal, right?
Cool.
Especially because, um, I mean, Nepal has had quite a few constitutional changes. Not,
Mhm.
I don't mean constitutional amendments,
Mhm.
new constitutions being rewritten again and again, right? So you
Mhm.
had Gyanendra, you had the monarchy, and then you had a form of parliamentary monarchy, and then it became a constitutional monarchy and all that. Then the king
Mhm.
finally completely went away. So
Mhm.
they've had a few changes, lot of changes, which were mostly driven by the youth. But I'll just finish with this. But the problem that I see here is that it is a negative unity, right? The people do come together, but it's not a positive unity in the sense that they want to build something. It's a negative unity in the sense that they want to remove something. They're not
Okay.
happy with it, so they want to remove it. But what happens after that? It's basically like a dog chasing a car, right? It
Mhm.
barks at the car till the
Mhm.
car is moving. But once the car stops, the dog doesn't know what to do anymore. It's just standing there and staring staring like it doesn't know what to do. So that's what
Mhm.
I'm afraid the Gen Z is leading to.
Amazing.
Uh,
From your personal reflection, Aditya, like I feel even I almost belong to the same age group as you. So we, the borderline Gen Zs, have benefits of both millennials as well as Gen Zs. And I'll give the space now to Kausar ma'am or Varun, whoever wants to maybe share their thoughts, and then I'll give space to Riaz as well.
So
I think
I
Varun
thought
should
that I,
share.
oh yeah, okay, ma'am. You want to speak?
No, no, I want you to share. I'm more of a listener today.
Okay. So I thought that I would be against Gen Z's impulsiveness, and but I really thank Aditya because I am thinking on the similar lines. So like there are three instances I'll tell, like one at Bangladesh and another one at Nepal and one of India. Now, if I compare Bangladesh and Nepal, in Bangladesh it was a political necessity because the policies were really bad, and there were certain genuine demands because of which Gen Z they came together and they went against the Sheikh Hasina government. But with case of Nepal, I feel that it was more of impulsiveness and more of political ego. Now, were they right or wrong is not my stance. They were they might be right. The Gen Zs who protested, their demands were right. They were legit, but however, the method is something which I kind of disagree. I kind of align with the institution building approach. India is an imperfect democracy, definitely. But when we got the transfer of power from Britishers to Indians, the reason why we were relatively stable than our neighboring states or many other countries was because we adopted an institutional approach. So the youth at that time, they invested themselves in creating institutions or getting involved in the institutions and bringing change through those institutions. That approach is more beneficial than removing someone from the power and establishing someone else. And last thing which I will say, removing person A and installing person B on that chair, might bring certain change definitely, but with the 2014 experience, I don't think that might bring a lot of change. Like that is just marginal. I feel that more Gen Z should go through more institution building and institution involvement approach.
That was such a strong point, and that was you almost brought up the point that I also want to discuss later in this conversation. Like, uh, because right now Reels is all about Balensha and his charisma, right? So towards the later part of this conversation, I just want to talk about that as well, the role of charisma in modern day politics as well. Even after having learned hard lessons from Hitler and Mussolini and stuff like that. So Riaz, what do you feel? The role of Gen Zs in modern politics, especially Southern Asia.
Yeah, what I feel is that you cannot isolate economics from the politics. So I believe that there is a poetry, some stanza in Urdu, which Kausar ma'am would be knowing कि जब पर्टिकुलर इंसान के घर को आग लगती है तो like when it affects you really, that's when you start doing something. So for example, if you see the case of Noida as well, they were directly affected, and that's when they took the initiative. That's where what Aditya was mentioning, that kind of consistency नहीं बन पाता है, so that also breaks down at the moment when it affects you really, and when it affects you directly. So it's not the case of a particular generation, I believe so it's not a particular case of a generation where you don't keep that consistency in you. Rather, when it affects you directly, you get up and stand up against the issue when it affects you directly, but not as a particular country, but when it affects you directly as a community or as a family. So, for example, the crisis in Bangladesh as well, when it was getting overwhelming that you are not getting the jobs in the government. So, it was impacting every household of the Bangladeshi new generation. So, when it started impacting every household almost, so that's when they got up against arms against the Sheikh Hasina government. So I completely connect it with the economy, and that, for example, if you will see the case of Russian Revolution, you will see the case of French Revolution as well. For example, they completely went all peaceful to ask the king whether where do we get the food, and and then he directly asked his army to attack the protesters or the peaceful protesters even. And when the army saw whom are we going against, it was their own household members. It were their own members of their families only. So when it affects a basic household, then you stand up against it. So that is how I see it, especially in the case of South Asia.
That was a very personal approach to it. And the only thing that I remember of Russian Revolution is Rasputin. But a very valid input. Kausar ma'am, I have a different question for you. My question to you
Okay.
is, a lot of times we see that the teenagers or the youngsters or the youth are not
Mm-hmm.
interested or rather disinterested in the political setup of the country. They do not take interest, especially in the urban and say tier two cities. And if at all they are engaged, then we see that coming out alive or manifesting itself in a very so-called the अंधभक्त wala phase, वो phase दिखता
Mm-hmm.
है of political activism. So, do you think it is okay for the youngsters to be apolitical, to not have political opinion and just be okay with their pockets? जब तक उनको अच्छे jobs मिल रहे हैं, अच्छी नौकरियां, अच्छे पैसे मिल रहे हैं, तब तक वो satisfied है. And having this approach to leaving the country and just going out because they have just given up on any changes that can be brought about.
I don't think that's a problem only with teenagers or Gen Zs. It's a general problem. I know so many millennials who just don't care until the time it does not affect them, like very directly. Like, like we had recently the crisis, LPG crisis, and I know many people who were like, kahan hai crisis? Just because the food was served on their plate, they were not affected. So I guess it's a very common problem, and it is not this generations, it has been there since generations. Because the way people have portrayed politics, it is portrayed as a dirty game. It is portrayed as a game, a place where only criminals or people who don't have really good intentions are there. So when you portray politics to the students as a chance to bring a good change in the society, and as an opportunity to have more power than anybody who is doing a job, I guess if you're a minister, you will have way more power than anyone else. Or maybe these days even industrialists have quite a power.
Mm.
So we have to bring about that phase, that how politics can be, how politics can be a good force. I feel that way it is. In Ladakh, I see the opposite. I see most of the teenagers are into it. Even when I take class, I recently take took conducted a class, and there in the class when we had we had this discussion of the typical question that people ask, what do you want to be after class 10th? I see many girls who stood up and said, we want to be a politician, and we want to bring rights to the tribals and all those things. So I feel we have to do a lot of work in bringing the right picture. है ना? अभी यहाँ label नहीं कर सकते, because as a millennial also I don't remember I ever said that I want to be a politician. हम डॉक्टर बनेंगे, इंजीनियर बनेंगे, पायलट बनेंगे, बड़ा बात लगता था. बट नाउ आई रियलाइज दैट पॉलिटिशियन भी बन सकते हैं, मतलब बनना चाहिए. है ना? इट पीपल शुड कम आउट एंड स्पीक अबाउट, बिकॉज आफ्टर सर्टन टाइम एक कॉमन आदमी का पावर का एक लिमिट है. ये मुझे बहुत बार फील हुआ. But somebody who is holding a good position, if he has good intentions, can bring about a lot of change. So that feeling needs to be put into it. Now the andhbhakt and all these things, which is of course, अब ये है कि unfortunately those things are being promoted, and social media is used for that in a very strong way. We all know it, ये अंधभक्ति और जो भी चीजें हैं. तो इसमें uh, there is a lot of competition. I don't know how to put it, but misinformation and the right information. But again, I'll say that my experience of talking to people and making futile discussions with so many people about Indian politics, I realized that this problem is across generations. Across generations there is a problem. ये जो चीज़ आई है mindset में लोगों के, with religious divide and the complete very different way of seeing the politics and seeing the foreign policy of our country, I feel it is across every generation. It is not just the teenagers or not just the Gen Zs. Many millennials, many people जो हमारे father के age के होंगे, they all are into it, and they are seeing the Indian politics or generally the politics from a very weird lens. I feel for neutral lens जो है, that is
Mm.
like somewhere going on, and it is all polarized. People are at the edges.
Mm.
And yeah, lastly, sorry for making it long. In our place, in the place around me, I feel now my kids, and generally I've seen kids, are more politically aware, and they more want to know more about what is, happening. Now, in other states of India, it might be a little different because of the recent things, just say the Palestine issue, the Iran war, the six schedule problem that has happened in Ladakh. So that has made teenagers little more aware of what is happening in the politics.
Exceptional. And also practices that you do in your school. I just saw yesterday your Instagram story was about elections happening in your school. So that's such
Yes,
a
yes.
positive way of uh, bringing in like, political activism in students, in youngsters. I'll I'll come to the last bit of it. And your inputs were so valid, and it really felt very good to get a perspective from Ladakh and Leh as well. Uh, my next question and the last one would be, uh, if we could compare or if you could talk about the charisma element involved in this present transition that we saw in Nepali politics, and talk about the pros and cons of it. And if we could talk about how social media is helping in creating this charisma, which was not available in 1940s, where we had charismatic leaders and we saw the impacts as well. So role of social media and the impact of charisma, and how sustained would this change be, the positive change that we are seeing. Anyone can go.
I guess charisma has been always there in Indian politics. Like I remember my elder generation talking about how people used to come in large numbers just to see Rajiv Gandhi, and like they knew that he has no political opinion. He's not from politics background, but they just used to come in large number to see Rajiv Gandhi. Now with social media, we have, I guess, magnified the issue, like Narendra Modi, then laser eye, Jay Shankar, he giving reels with his laser eyes, and so I guess we have just magnified it. So this charisma, like we succumbing to charisma, was the issue. But however, we also have some examples like PV Narasimha Rao. He was least charismatic person in the world, and he was able to like bring 91 reforms. Yeah, certain bad things like Babri also happened under his regime, but there were certain like 91 reforms happened. Most dangerous reforms, most difficult reforms happened under the least charismatic Prime Minister of India. So yeah.
Amazing. Uh, Charisma always does not translate to actions. And if at all, then miss actions. Hitler is an example. Aditya, Riaz, Kausal ma'am, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I was thinking that I feel that is too much. And social media has actually, if you see social media, how funny is it that just because somebody just looks like this, and that can also become a news, and it comes in slow motion with a trending music. And so it might be just a very simple thing that I just look nicely at someone, and they can say, wow, how nice she is. So social media can like instantly make you a hero or a heroine. So that is the power. But I feel if you really want to succeed and be a people's person and want your opinion, you need to have the mind share of people, and that is what it is. तो charisma का तो बहुत नुकसान बहुत है. But I feel if any one of us wants to succeed as a politician, we should use this thing in a in a positive way to make our things happen and get the mind share of people. So people also think the way we think. You can make people think the way you think using this whole process. But yeah, of course, you cannot say it is long lasting. To make it long lasting, you need to have a great PR cell and all those things and a lot of
Like our Modi ji.
मत बोल.
I can go
Especially
next.
तुम.
I can go
Yeah.
next. Yeah, what I feel is that, like, being a history student, what I feel is that across history there has been this cult formation. Like, if you'll see the ancient India, rulers used to print, or sorry, these inscribe coins, inscribe their names on the coins, and then in the later part, in the medieval India, they used to build these monuments. In the ancient India, they used to build the temples, and they were created to not for the people, obviously, but in order to create that cult or the image of a particular ruler or a particular dynasty. So same used to happen across Mughal age, and in the modern times as well. I think in this bombardment of social media and bombardment of information on social media, what shrewd politicians do is that they pick these particular topics. In the recent case, if you have seen Raghav Chadda's case, so he picked up these Gen Z issues like internet bills, like some of the other couple of areas like gig workers. So he picked these small pointers which made him popular, but which are popular among the Gen Zs. If you'll see post-independence era of India, so what you will see is that we needed human power. We needed our own indigenous human power to sustain the governance at all levels across departments. And we had a literacy rate of 13%, for example, on the eve of independence. And gradually it started growing up, and the educated ones came into the mainstream governance. And with the advent of time, almost education reached to every household, where everyone is educated. So it has become become difficult to get into the government services. So it's also linked to the previous question, that why are we having these kind of protesters among Gen Zs when it's affecting their own householders. So this creation of a cult image, and always all the charismatic leaders come with particular focus or particular strategy to brand their image of being a politician. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Wonderful. We just have two and a
Just
half
add
minutes
one
left.
point.
Aditya could take 1 minute, and then I have thought of a good शायरी जिससे मैं close
Definitely.
करूंगा. So Aditya.
Wonderful. I'll just start then. So it was just one point that I wanted to put across. I mean, the basic reason behind all these protests, right? So I believe, and I truly believe this, that it is the reason. The reason for these protests is the failure of achieving the proper demographic dividend, right? So we always talk about demographic dividend, that India is a youthful country. We are going to get so much power, by utilizing this demographic dividend. It was the same with Bangladesh. It was the same with Nepal. And I think because they didn't utilize them properly, because they didn't give the growth that was the potential of their particular group, right? When that failed, that is why Gen Z has taken up arms. And I fear that this might also be in India's reckoning in the future, because we are wasting our demographic dividend. Just stop there.
That was very crisp and very apt. Uh, I personally do not shy away from expressing my political views and just telling that my dream is to become the Prime Minister of India. Every time I meet anyone new, no matter which side of the political spectrum that person leans to, I'm very vocal. I want to be the Prime Minister of India, and I'm very serious. So I'll close with one शायरी, and this is something जो मुझे याद नहीं है, but मैं try कर रहा हूँ, which is देश की दुर्दशा देखकर अगर तुम्हारा खून ना खौले तो खून नहीं वो पानी है, देश के जो काम ना आए बेकार वो जवानी है. So Gen Zs should have a thank you. So I feel youngsters चुप रहे. So youngsters are really very important, and their views really would shape the political opinion, because they are the ones who will live in the country and not the old people who are in power right now. So thank you so much, Kausar ma'am, for joining from Leh, Aditya for joining from Chennai, right? Us from Ranchi, and Varun from Mumbai. So we can close it now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for
Thank
hosting
you.
this space.
Thank
This
you,
was
Kosaran.
really